in the next public hearing. They appear to be they're money somewhere. So, okay, have a staff report on that next public hearing?
Yes. So the proposed ordinance for the interim controls would be to establish a maximum building size of 10,000 square feet in 13 rural zones. And those rural zones would include our rural very low zone, our rural low and western region rural low, R5 zones, our rural character conservation zones, our rural low mixed zone, and our rural neighborhood conservation zones. Now those rural zones typically have a rural density ranging anywhere from 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres approximately to 1 dwelling unit per 20. A few of those zones have some provisions for higher densities through conservation design. The interim controls would also apply to a number of what I'm going to term rural residential limited areas of more intensive rural development. And I know that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of folks, but these are our rural zones that allow for more higher density residential development. Those would include the Cooley residential, which is 2 dwelling units per acre. That's a West End zoning district. The rural, western region rural, and rural suburban community zones. Those are 1 dwelling unit per acre zoning districts. And our rural moderate and western region rural moderate zones, which are 1 dwelling unit per 2.4 acres. So 13 zones in total, spanning east and west portions of the county where those zones are located. This ordinance will not apply as written to rural commercial and rural industrial zones, urban growth areas, which would include a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial zones, nor would it apply to our commercial forest and agricultural retention lands. So why are we proposing these interim controls? Our rural residential zones and those rural residential more intensive zones permit as an allowed or conditionally allowed use of a variety of uses, things that you'd expect such as agriculture, timber harvesting, single family residential uses, which could also include accessory type uses to those, home-based type businesses, bed and breakfast, and a limited number of other non-residential. A couple examples, there might be a commercial greenhouse you might see, a church, those type of things that you might see in a rural area. These particular zones certainly have standards for building setbacks, minimum lot sizes if you're going to split your property, but these zones do not have any specific size standard for those permitted uses or scale standard for those permitted uses set forth in the zoning code. Now, if it was a conditional use permit, often those could on a case-by-case basis consider neighborhood factors which may result in scaling, but there's no prescriptive standard for building size and scale for those permitted uses in those rural zones. Determination by the department recommendations that new development results in building sizes that could be potentially significantly out of scale, out of character. This is an issue, and this is why we're proposing this ordinance. The interim rules would allow the Department of Community Development to work with the Clallam County Planning Commission to study the issue of impacts of building size and scale on otherwise permitted uses in the zones and obtain public input on that. The Planning Commission's already started that conversation, kind of started already with vacation rentals and bed and breakfasts, but we also had a work session at their last, not too long ago on the issue of building size and scale, so that discussion's already occurred. If the Board of Commissioners adopts this interim controls today, they would be in effect 10 days from adoption. That's a requirement under the Clallam County Home Rule Charter. Interim controls under the Growth Management Act and Planning and Enabling Acts, following a public hearing and following adoption by the board, they automatically expire within 6 months from the effective date. But the board can certainly hold a hearing such as today to either rescind that. They might rescind that for a number of reasons. We have permanent controls that would replace interim controls. That might be one scenario. They can certainly extend or modify interim controls following a public hearing in the future, and that outcome would probably be based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission if more time is needed, or essentially more time is needed, that extension or modification would be recommended. So that's the interim controls that are before the board today, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to hear your testimony on this interim measure. Thank you.
Any questions of Steve or anything?
Not at this time.
No objection in the public hearing on the proposed ordinance establishing interim controls under Clallam County Code Chapter 33.40. Kenneth Rialdo.
Kenneth Rialdo, same address. So I support your interim control proposal. As stated previously, my understanding is 10,000 square feet is the largest structure that's currently in rural residential areas. So I think that's a good place to start, whether that's the end. I mean, this is a draft process. We're going to evolve through this. So I'll continue to follow this process. I guess I would ask to see there's a 10-day window before this would become actually in effect. So make sure that it's reiterated that we have the emergency controls in place until then.
To Irv Rule.
I'm Irv Rule, resident of 464 Rhapsody Drive off of East Glen Bay Road. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed ordinance. The specter of a proposed 32,000 square foot hotel with 25 bathrooms masquerading, yes, masquerading as a private residence to be used as a bed and breakfast was and is alarming to us in our neighborhood. All previous comments. This represents an invasion of a toxic species that would forever change our environment. It is the human-made structural equivalent of the toxic tansy plant that we were asked to remove from our roadways. A metaphoric exaggeration, you may say, not really, for the following reasons. A proposal of this scale was the first, but it surely will not be the last as our area continues to be discovered and becomes a destination for such structures. Once established, like all toxic species, they would encourage and invite propagation of other similar structures. This then becomes the norm and a presence that is not reversible. This would slowly consume the bay and other comparable residential habitats, would contaminate the essence of our rural character, and destroy the very presence of what originally drew all of us here. Go to other communities, and I've said this before, go to other communities in our country where people lament the loss of their sense of place when oversized residential structures invade and despoil their neighborhoods. You are well aware of that outcome. I grew up in a village with prairie-style homes of modest scale. Now 3 homes are typically replaced with a McMansion, so out of scale that it dwarfs all other residences and is in effect a de facto hotel. It is alien. It destroys the surroundings. There emerges then a palpable sense of sorrow in the neighborhood. There is disgust. There is sourness. So residents there say to themselves, how in the world, in our very personal and very personable neighborhood, did we allow this to take place? In our place of all places. Can we allow this to happen here? Have we no sense of our place? So commissioners, it is now time to turn our alarm into a positive action that ensures the preservation of our neighborhoods in our rural areas. An action through an ordinance that limits the size of structures as being proposed. an ordinance that supports the fundamental principle of proportionality of structure size relative to the surrounding context. An ordinance that would have the effect of prohibiting structures to be presented as something they are not. So we support you in this zoning ordinance proposal and hope you will continue to be the good stewards of our lands and continue to preserve the character of what we love here so dearly. And as I leave the podium, I'm reminded of what I saw on my drive over here this morning. And that is the symbol of our area which graces the entrances to Sequim. It is an elk, not an out-of-place large elephant. Thank you.